And today is the third installment of how to become the go-to expert in your local area. We've spoken about Google. We've spoken about things like blogging and social media and lead magnets and your website. And today we're going to talk about impressing people, because that's how you get talked about. You want to, in some ways, think about becoming like the local celebrity. I'm not suggesting you want to be famous in any way, but that's what sort of happens when patients really start to rave about their experience in your practice. You have to keep in mind that people are 10 times more likely to talk about a bad experience than a good one. So you really are going to have to make it amazing if you want them to chat amongst themselves about you. We all know that word of mouth referrals are the best referral. Why? Because they're sold on you before they even contact you. Because someone has said, oh my gosh, I love Dr. Jones so much. She's absolutely amazing. You guys have to go check her out. Or someone says something like, I really didn't like my last dental visit. And then, oh, I know where you should go. We have the best dentist ever, right? If you want to be the one that they're talking about as the best dentist ever, then you're going to have to do something that other people aren't doing. The best place that I know you can do this, and I talk about this a lot for a reason, is in your new patient experience. We're going to talk about each step in that journey a little bit today and some things that maybe you can think about doing in order to enhance your new patient experience. But if you impress someone at their first visit in your practice, you usually have created a lifelong loyalist, someone who will happily talk about you, happily refer to you, and will be your greatest fan. Why? Because the human mind is interesting. When we make up our mind that we like someone, we will then only look for evidence to support that decision because we like to be right. Our ego is good for that. So if your first experience with a patient is impressive to them, if they leave thinking, wow, that was so much better than I was expecting, you've won. And they will actually forgive you some of the small stuff if it ever happens down the road. You know, say you're running behind a little bit or someone messes up on a piece of paperwork, they'll let it go because they like you. They really, really like you. So let's think about all of the different layers or places where a new patient might come into contact with you. And through that new patient experience, that very first appointment with you, how can you actually impress them? Let's think about phones. What is the first way that people generally contact your practice? Usually by the phone, right? They call you. Do you think that your receptionist maybe has the power to turn them on positively towards your practice or completely turn them off? More than you would like to believe. I don't know how many times people have told me that they ended up calling our office because they got a bad vibe or a bad feeling or someone was cranky on the phone at another office. That is something you absolutely don't want happening. So before you think about anything else in the steps of the new patient experience, you need to consider what's happening on the phones. I just did a huge training on phones. So go back in the group, find the 2 lessons where I talked about phones, but this is a big deal. That first taste they get of your customer service, your energy, the culture in your practice will be on the phone. So make sure that that is top notch and where you want it to be. Because if you've impressed them on the phone, you've already set them up for some success coming into the practice. Now we'll go through all the things that they might touch when they're in the practice, and you can start to brainstorm how to make it a wow experience. Don't get overwhelmed here. Nothing that you need to come up with for any of this has to be expensive or time consuming. It can be very simple, easy things. It's the small touches that make people go, wow. So it can seem like it was hard or a big deal, but it doesn't actually have to be. Let's talk about how they're greeted. Most of us have a front door of some kind. It's either leading directly from a parking lot or we're inside another type of building. And so people have to enter usually through one door to get to us. How are they greeted? Is it chaos and they're not sure where to go and people are like milling around and they don't know if they're supposed to? Is there an iPad somewhere? Do I talk to someone at the front desk? Like, is it, crazy? Do they walk in and everyone's heads down and no one looks up and says anything to them? Or do they open the door and right away they get a beaming, smiling face saying, "Good morning, welcome, we're so happy to see you. Can I check you in? What's your name?" Any number of things. Or we use an iPad for check-in. It's right over here. Please go ahead. That first few sentences that come out of someone's mouth, even if it's just a hello and welcome with a big smile because you're busy doing something else, means something big. Another thing that I think is highly recommended is whoever is doing the greeting, if possible, is also going to lay some expectations right out of the gate so no one's confused or wondering or worrying that what's supposed to be happening isn't happening. So that could mean something like, "Oh, good morning, welcome to the practice. You must be blah, blah, blah," especially if you don't have a lot of patients that day and they know it's the new patient. "We have some new patient paperwork to fill out for you," or if they already filled it out, you can say, "Thank you for filling out your new patient paperwork. Please feel free to have a seat in our reception area. Patricia is our treatment coordinator. She's going to be meeting with you in just a few moments. There's coffee over here, water over here, and if you need a bathroom, it's just around the corner and down the hall. Shouldn't be more than about 5 minutes. Let me know if you need anything." If you set the expectation of what can they touch, so they're allowed to help themselves to coffee or to water, and the bathroom is just around down the hall around the corner, they already know that you've given them the okay to do all of those 3 things. That's important for people. Some people, of course, will just take charge and do and touch whatever they want, but most people are trying to be like polite and socially acceptable, and so they're not really sure maybe what they're supposed to do. Or maybe they do have to go to the bathroom, but they're not sure where it is, and are they allowed to walk into your practice, or is it outside in the hall? So the more anxiety you can alleviate by telling them what to expect, the better. I do highly recommend that you have an impressive looking reception area. We call ours a living room. It is designed very much like a living room. We have comfy seating. We've got games, an arcade for the kids to play at. We used to have iPads. We took them down. Everyone has their phone. We have an amazing coffee machine and people rave about our coffee constantly. It's probably the biggest small change we made in our practice. We spend a little bit of extra money on a super fancy, super automatic, 15 different kinds of coffee and hot chocolate machine that lives in our reception area. And I swear people come, like parents come up from their cars just so they can have a coffee. And they talk about the coffee. We've had people get referred from friends and family and tell us that they were so excited to come in to have a coffee. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is your reception area. So where people will be sitting is actually a great place to make a first impression. And they're going to judge you immediately on what that area looks like, feels like, smells like, all of it. Because people will judge you on the things they know. And at that point, they aren't really sure what kind of person you are necessarily, especially if they didn't hear about you from someone else. They have no idea about your dentistry. You haven't done anything to them yet. But they do know whether things look old or broken or worn out or dirty. They do know what chaos feels like. They have a good general idea of what it feels like to be well taken care of, to be cared about, to be important, to not just be a number. And so that time that they spend in reception, whether that's 5 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever, is actually a very important time. So I want you, make sure you spend some time in your own reception area. Like come in from outside, look around, sit, have other people do that too. What do you see? What do you smell? Is it comfortable? What does it sound like? Like what noises can you hear when the practice is running? Are you hearing conversations that you shouldn't be hearing? Like get a good feel for what's happening there because people are judging you on sort of how that experience is going. So we've talked about the beginning part, the phones, how they're greeted when they first walk in the door. So their very first like human to human touch point with you. And then what happens when they're sitting in reception? The next thing that usually happens for a new patient is some type of exam. So someone's going to bring them back and then something's going to happen in a chair somewhere in the clinic. I'm hoping that your team comes out, introduces themselves, gathers that person, and then lets them know what to expect as they walk back to wherever they're going. People want to be made to feel special, and they really want to feel like they are heard and understood. And so if you can coach and teach your team that they should be listening more than they're speaking, that they should be really good at asking questions and being curious, and they need to work on paraphrasing so that they can repeat back to someone what they've said to make sure that they understand. Whoever is gathering information, either to make diagnosis or to pass it off to the person who will or whatever, it needs to be really good at those skills so that accurate information is being passed and the new patient feels like you've really got the gist of what their concerns are, why they're there, you know, maybe they're super nervous because they've had bad experiences in the past or whatever that is, you've gathered all that information. Of course, everyone should be as friendly as possible. I always say this feels like a given to me when we talk about customer service, but your team should be happy, smiling, and polite. Happy, smiling, and polite. Happy, smiling, and polite all the time. There should be no reason why they can't be that way 100% of the time. And if that's an expectation you have with them and you are holding them accountable to that expectation, then they will be that way all of the time, even if it's a show and they're being an actress for a period of time. In our office, that's a-okay. You can be acting for the whole damn day, I don't care, as long as you are happy, smiling, and polite. So what's going to happen is some sort of information is going to be gathered. We're going to, chit chat, and then case or treatment presentation is going to occur. Meaning, in our practice as an orthodontist, usually my treatment coordinator does the presentation. I come in to answer questions at the end. But sometimes, depending on the schedule, I will come in and do a little bit of the presentation part, talking about treatment. In a general dental practice, there are many, many ways this could be set up. But the important thing to keep in mind is that you are going to tell them what they need, which is why they came to see you. And unfortunately, a lot of people see and treat dentistry like it's a commodity, meaning a filling is a filling, a crown is a crown, a checkup is a checkup, a cleaning is a cleaning. And so they don't know or understand or think that there could be any difference amongst those things office to office. We all know that not to be true, right? We know that there are great places to have braces done, or great places to get crowns done, or great places, like we know there's great dentists and great orthodontists, and we also know there are total crap orthodontists and total crap dentists. We know that. We can't say that necessarily specifically, but we know there is a difference. So how do you let your new patients know that you are the best of the best? That you care about them tremendously, that you really want to provide exceptional service for them, that you want them to feel heard and understood? Well, you can tell them those things for sure. But sometimes words alone don't come off the tongue right, or you feel like you're bragging about yourself and you don't want to do that. So how else can you do it? Well, you can provide more value to them than anyone else does. And when I mean value, when you are presenting treatment to them, you need to present it in such a way that if they were to go down the street and let's say have the exact same treatment needs diagnosed by that dentist, which we also know is unlikely, but if that's the case, that they shouldn't be able to take 2 sheets of paper with a quote on them and be able to compare them apples to apples. Because then what happens? If they can compare them apples to apples, then it really just comes down to price often. Now, hopefully you've impressed their socks off by the time you get to this, that they almost would already say, let's say you're their second opinion, that they couldn't even compare them because they've been treated so much better at this practice. Everyone seems so much nicer, so much friendlier. The coffee was amazing. It smelled like cookies in the reception area. Everybody called me by my first name. I mean, whatever it is, all the little touches that you've done, that when we get here, they may already say that they couldn't necessarily compare it apples to apples. But here's where you actually make the difference. Instead of doing something like, and I've done a video on this before, instead of saying, we recommend that you get this filling and this crown and come for cleanings every 6 months, right? Here it is written down. It's going to cost this much money. We'll do it in 2 appointments. Here you go. Instead, you present to them, and I'm not saying this is how you have to do it, but you present to them what they need and you add value. Value doesn't necessarily mean giving stuff away for free. Value means providing them additional things, resources, information. It could be free stuff like whitening, but giving them other things that come along with the things that they need so that they can see that you are providing them with exceptional value. The example I gave, I think in the training I did in here, was that if someone says you need a crown, here you need a crown, it's $1,000. And this person says you need a crown. And when you get a crown at our office, you also get free whitening. And we also provide you with a guide for how to keep your teeth healthy for the rest of your life so that you have all the tools and resources you need for home care so that you hopefully don't have to have a whole bunch more crowns. And if those are written down, and this one was 1,000 and this one was 1,200, which one are people more likely to pick? Now, again, there's going to be other things stacked on this, but believe me, the 1,200 is going to win a lot more because the value provided is higher. the care provided is higher. And even though the price is higher, more people will choose to do treatment with you if you're providing more value to them. So more benefit to them. And of course, we know, I don't know what percentage of my patients am I a second, third, or fourth, or fifth opinion? It's definitely not the majority, right? So if you can present treatment and they think it's great value, then they're most likely not going to seek a second opinion. They're going to stay with you. So you're going to present treatment and they go, yeah, that's amazing. That's great that you're going to give me all that stuff. I've never heard of a dentist doing that before. I'm going to come here, right? That's one way to add value. Again, creativity is your only limit here on how you want to provide value to patients. Do whatever you think is going to be of benefit to your patient base and provide them with extra value. And again, to the doctors here as well, listen more than you speak. That's hard. Believe me, that's hard for me. I love to talk. Listen more than you speak. Ask questions, be curious, make sure that you are speaking directly to their concerns. Yes, tell them what they need, but also give them what they want. Okay, that helps. The next thing in the new patient experience you have to keep in mind is follow-up. How do you follow up with people that maybe don't start or book treatment with you the day that they first meet you? Does it always mean that you didn't impress them? No. Does it mean that you screwed up somewhere? No, not necessarily. Like, people have lives and crap going on, and sometimes they cannot commit or make a decision right there. So how do you follow up with your new patients? Do they know long after that first visit that you still care, that you're still there for them, that you're there to answer questions, you're there to see them again, you're there to book treatment whenever they're ready, you talk about finances on the phone, you can help them with their insurance. I mean, whatever it is, do they know that? How often do you follow up? Far too often I see practices follow up once or twice and then never contact people who don't book ever again. I honestly think you should be following up with them until they tell you to stop. Not daily until they tell you to stop, but several times in those first couple of weeks, and then regularly, maybe monthly, until they tell you to stop. People are busy. There's lots going on. It's not annoying. They just forget about you. Maybe they had great intentions of coming, and then finally after 6 months of contacting, they're like, oh yeah, I really should get that crown done. And then they get it booked. So don't slack on the follow-up. Now, those are all the key aspects that happen through the new patient experience. What I want you to keep in mind is this: people like things that are unexpected. For a while there before COVID, we were giving out Dippin' Dots in the practice, and people thought that was crazy and weird and totally awesome. And it got talked about constantly, and it wasn't an expensive thing for us to have in the office. With COVID, we got rid of open food because they were in little containers and we had to scoop them, so that went away. But little things like that can make a huge difference and don't add much to the bottom line. You want to do something that is unexpected if you want people to talk about you. Unexpected, of course, in a good way. You want to make them feel special, maybe like you were expecting them. We always have set up in our treatment coordinator office, ready for them is like a little box with a couple gifts in it, a water bottle, and a folder, right, that has all their information in it. And so they always feel when they enter that room that we were expecting them, that we were ready for them, and that we have something special for them. So keep this in mind. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be time consuming. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be something that is unexpected and or makes them feel special. And I think both are great. When you wow people, they talk about you. You want them to think when they leave your practice, wow, that was so much more than I was expecting. Not, yeah, it was a trip to the dentist. And I mean, really, this is only super important if you want to grow your practice. If you don't worry about it. I honestly believe, though, that if you were to change nothing else in your practice, nothing else you were doing, if you up-leveled your new patient experience, so from phones all the way to follow-up, and you did nothing else, your practice will grow. Because it's that key, it's that important. Thanks for tuning in. Maybe you were one of the people that watched all 3 of these. If that's the case, thank you so much.